Hi everyone, I'm here with Bob Liekens and we're in Pasadena, California at Zoe, a Pilates studio, which is a beautiful classical studio in Pasadena. Did I already say that? We're in Pasadena. And Bob has just finished teaching a wonderful intermediate workout, which I encourage you to try on the site here. And we wanted to talk a little bit about Bob's memories of working with Romana and his start in the Pilates world and all of those fun things. So I'll start off by asking you just that.
Okay, so I came to the Pilates studio. It was Romana's, what we refer to as the original studio. It was Joe's old studio, and then Romana moved it, and we called that the original studio. And that was like in 83. I came as a dancer to New York, and a friend had given me different addresses, different studios, and one of them was a Pilates studio. I had never heard of it, but I checked it out, and I fell in love with it. It felt good, and I had to, come almost like 3 times a week. Yeah, you had to, buy these first 5 sessions. You couldn't do just one, so that was a little problem in the beginning. But then once I started moving, it really felt good, and I kept going. And I was a student for like about 3 years, and then one afternoon, Romana asked, "Honey, Melanie is sick. You teach this afternoon." I'm like, "Romana?" And she's like, "No. You know how to teach. You know your workout, so teach." And I've been teaching ever since, it's, it has been a long time. It's been almost like 27 years that I've been teaching. So I've seen a lot of things happening, and thank God there was always Romana. She's kind of the backbone, and it's her inspiration, her energy that keeps me going, because, she was an amazing teacher, what can we say? And it's also really nice to realize that she worked so close and for such a long time with Joe Pilates himself. So when we say we teach the method, classical Pilates, it's like, well, I just have to listen to Romana's voice, which I will have forever in my ears. And then, of course, through her, you also hear Joe. And it's so nice to know that, we're continuing a tradition. Yeah, it's not like 5,000 years old. It is something that we hear those people speak today, basically. So that's what I always try to do, honor that legacy, that present that Romana has given us, that Joe has given Romana, and just now pass it on to the next generations. And I find that very, very joyful.
Yes. Yeah.
Also a big responsibility. Because there's a lot of influences, there's a lot of changes, and it's like, no, let's stay steady, let's stay with that, because it's a beautiful method. Like Romana always said, trust the method. But you really have to learn as it is, and as I always say, you have to learn it from A to Z, not just study it in a manual, which doesn't mean much. You have to really practice it in your own body. It has to be your practice, and then how can you teach? Sharing your experience. And I feel that's what I'm doing right now, is sharing my experience of being in Romana's studio, working with Romana so much. And I think it's important that people realize that it's a technique created by a guy, Joseph Pilates, and then passed on to us by another wonderful teacher, Romana. And so here we are today. Yep.
And something occurred to me as you were talking about that, when Romana first told you, okay, go teach, that had to have been a big day.
Well, yeah, in a way, yes. I mean, it was a great honor because Romana was quite demanding. So for her to ask you to teach was great. There was less pressure. I mean, at that point, I was already a certified dance teacher, so I knew how to teach. I love teaching, and I had been working out for 3 years, so I knew my workout. Of course, I had to go to Romana and say, "What you do this and this," but certain exercises I didn't do. Yeah.
Right.
Now we have a certification, we have a manual, we have an apprenticeship that didn't exist. The apprenticeship was really the 3 years being with her, and she sees you, and then she chooses you or not. Yeah.
And so then, as you were teaching and learning, of course, what you had already learned in your body with all these different bodies, would she help you understand what that
Yes, or the other teachers, not always, but we all know sometimes questions to Romana was a difficult thing. Just, honey, just leave it out. The big phrase, when in doubt, leave it out. But there were other great teachers. I mean, of course, there was Carol Regan, with whom I worked a lot. My first teacher was Doug Ficocelli. Phoebe Higgins is another great teacher. So these people I could work with a lot and ask questions, which you couldn't always ask Romana. She was either too busy or she couldn't be bothered.
Yes, or you maybe had to watch her teach
see her do it.
Was like what you were working with and figure it out.
But then the hardest thing is like, Romana, how did you know? And the witch says, well, honey, you just have to touch a lot of bodies and then you know. It's like, really.
It's not helping.
But it's, well, up to a point, I can, in hindsight now, looking back at 20 years, I'm like, she's right. You know, don't talk about it, just do it.
Yes.
Teach, 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 and it will fall in place. But you have to pay your dues.
This is very true.
2 years just doesn't make it.
Something I remember even learning from you as an apprentice was that all of these answers come with time and experience, and you will learn from the bodies that you work with.
Yes.
But it's very scary as you're beginning to have the confidence that that's going to happen.
It's also a little difficult, and for people that have issues, and I'm keeping it very broad, that was a really very fast school for me. With a lot of things, because also for myself as a dancer, I never really had anatomy classes. And we all know Ramona completely disagreed with the idea of having anatomy training.
Yes.
But so that was a fast school to learn. But I totally understand, Ramona, what she's saying. Teach Pilates, don't teach anatomy in the studio. Completely agree with that. Nevertheless, as an instructor, you should know the basics at least, if not more than that. Yes,
it helps inform your teaching.
Yeah, especially when you have what we call troubleshooting. If a person says, well, it hurts my knees. Yeah, right, exactly. You have to be able to go then, okay, and you know, then design the workout for that person, because the exercises themselves are neutral. I mean, semicircle, it's not bad or good, it is what it is, but you can still, because people will say, well, I don't like the semicircle. Okay, now you have to be able to say why, and then help that person, apart from just leave it out.
That was one of my favorite things, when someone hates an exercise at the beginning, and then one day they say, oh, this is my favorite now.
Exercise, right, exactly. Yeah, and that's also very important, and that's something that's lost. Joe Pilates really created this method, starting basically what he really wanted to do on your back. So gravity will help to separate the vertebra, and the spine is in a healthy position, or a less compromised position. But then he developed all these other pieces of equipment to help a person to more understand what's going on. So to just do a mat and then say that's the method, I have my doubts on that. Yeah, because you really want to be able to get that point where the person says, aha. And that might not happen on the mat, which is very demanding. Gravity is all that's helping you or not helping you. The reformer is already more help, But then that's why he came up with the Cadillac, of course. He came up with a window chair, he came up with high chairs. All that needs to be in a session. So as an instructor, you know, you really have to be familiar with all these different pieces of equipment and be able to pull that trick out of your grab bag of experience to help that particular client. That's why we also call it individual needs. Joe had the mat, but he taught the client that, and then the client should take that home as homework. And once in a while he would check it. But really he worked on the reformer and then took the client to wherever the person needs to work on. Like we said, if you hit a point where they don't like the exercise or feel like, okay, then you hit what you need. So it's important to have
the exercises you need.
Right, but then you can kind of like first sidetrack and go somewhere else until you get that experience and the strength or the flexibility, take it back and see what has happened, what has improved. And that's the beauty of working in a full studio setup, which sometimes is lost, and that's unfortunate because that's how Joe designed it.
Truly. Tell us a little bit more about the process. I know you were one of the people who helped create Ramona's teacher training program.
Yes, I sat down with Ramona, which was a very interesting experience, because there was, when Sean Gallagher created or started the training program, there had to be a manual. And it was Carol Dodge who started the first manual, and I respect her for what she did, because it had to be done overnight. So what she got together was amazing for the short time. Of course, Ramona didn't like it, as usual. So I said, okay, I'll take it on myself. Let's go through all the pages, all the exercises, and make sure all the pictures are in there, and so on. And I said, Ramona, please explain what all the exercises are about. That's when she came up with the systems, also the labeling, beginner, intermediate, advanced. Those are 3 labels that Joe Pilates never used, not through his method and not through his clients. You introduce an exercise and then you challenge the client. That's it. But this was created for the apprentices. And then I feel fortunate that I could sit with Ramona, not once but twice. Through all the exercises, she would explain them, and I was then writing down, and then afterwards the pictures. She didn't like that first version. I was like, Ramona, you said it. But then she said, let's do this over again. So we did it a second time. I think it's a never-ending work, that manual. So, and at the same time, Ramona laughed and said, throw the manual out the window. It's something you use in the evening when you had your day of practice, of studying with each other and how to teach and how to do the exercise, and kind of a reference work, that's it. Don't go with a manual in the studio. So, but it was very hard for her to put herself down, because there is no, like, let's take short spine massage, there is not one version. There's at least 5 or 6 that I know.
Yeah.
And to put it down in a manual black and white, it was very scary for her. But she did it. I mean, I must give it to her.
I understand that before that, for many years, if someone became a teacher or was trained to become a teacher by Romana, it was through apprenticeship.
Yeah, totally. Like, you know, what she called independent study. Like kind of what I did. You're a client, you're a student, you're with Romana, you show more interest, and that's what she picked up, and then you're a teacher.
Exactly.
In an afternoon.
Right.
Not after so many hours apprenticeship.
And
that has all changed now.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say that most manuals, or Romana's was the original manual? Would you?
Well, for her, yeah, I think, I'm not sure about the history of it all, but yeah, it has a while ago since it has done, and meanwhile it has come through many revisions.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I don't know too many other manuals that exist from another school. There's Cathy Grant, there was Carola Trier's, and so on.
Yeah.
So I don't know too many manuals. It all started kind of through that first manual.
Do you remember what year that was? Just little good history notes.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I would have to. I think it's about like 88, 89.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there was Steve Giordano, who was also a star, because he was teaching together with Romana at the dance department of SUNY Purchase.
Right.
And they, of course, need to document, they need something more organized for the dancers. So this is the beginning, and also with Home Studio, they started with kind of a certification.
Right.
But it really, you know, got to the point of, okay, there is a certification, there is a manual with Sean Gallagher.
We need to have some
Yeah, so it's like
some notes
88, 89, somewhere around that time.
Right.
It took a while, as I said, I sat down with Romana for months to go all this exercises.
Wow.
That's also when I got to see all the archival material, which is now, you know, not available. But it was really nice to see through, because there's a lot of archival exercises as well. Because remember, Joe Pilates was, you know, he created his method first on his own body, and then also for the athletes, the wrestlers, the boxers. He was not interested in the dancers.
Yes.
And then, of course, when people like Romana and Cathy Grant or so came, you know, he was not that interested in all that.
Yes.
So then later on, you know, because he had exercises specifically for guys, for men.
Yeah.
And there were some exercises for the women. It was really separated.
Yeah.
And of course, Romana brought it more together. She was like, well, I can do that too. And now we have leg springs and arm springs for everybody.
Sure.
But there were a lot of exercises that unfortunately we've lost, because the women, the dancers, gave us their exercises.
Yeah.
But what was Joe doing with all these barbells and dumbbells? On a Wunda chair, we have some, you know, tantalizing snapshots, but we don't really have any, we don't have a manual from Joe.
And was Romana with you while you got to watch some of the archival?
Yes, all of that, yes. Well, something she said, well, I never studied that, I don't know. And then there were also very interesting things, like there is like a picture of Joe Pilates sitting on the Wunda chair with his knee and his head on the pedal, and there was a big red cross through it. And I'm like, Romana, did you do that?
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's like, don't ever do this exercise. But now she said, no, I didn't do it. That was Clara Pilates, his wife. So, yeah, no, it's very interesting what's there. So that's why it's such a shame that it's not available to
really
everybody, especially the next generations.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. I mean, they won't be working with Romana anymore, so it's very important that we keep the voice of Romana alive, which I will do everything I can.
Yes.
Yeah. Always with an understanding. I think that's very important.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Where can people find you nowadays? Are you out teaching?
Well, I'm traveling a lot. I mean, I'm based in New York.
Yes.
Right now, I'm not teaching in any studio, just a little bit on the side to keep my clients happy. Some of my clients I had for 20 years, and they're like, you can't abandon us now. So that's what I set that up for. But right now, I'm just traveling and keeping everybody in touch.
Wonderful.
And we're planning the future, but I could say, stay tuned.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you so much, Bob, for
My
being
pleasure.
part of Pilatesology.
Well, and thank you for doing this. It's great.